This is the story of the smallest winning margin in Tour de France history. Laurent Fignon versus Greg LeMond in 1989. We're going to tell this story and investigate how tech played a crucial role and won the Tour de France by just 8 seconds. It's July 1989. Nintendo has just launched the Game Boy. Interest rates were at 10.5%. The average price of a new car was $15,000. The Cold War is ending. Jive Bunny and the Mixmasters was #1 with Swing the Mood. And the Tour de France had come down to the final stage in Paris. Frenchman and 2-time Tour winner Laurent Fignon was in the yellow jersey and on the verge of his 3rd Tour win. Not only that, he'd already won the Giro d'Italia that year and was potentially going to do the Giro Tour double. Use your imagination. We're in Paris. It's 1989.
It looks a lot like Odd Down Cycle Circuit in Bath, England.
Use your imagination, Alex.
I'm imagining it now. It's so clear and vivid. Heading into the final stage, a 24.5 kilometre individual time trial in Paris, American Greg LeMond was 50 seconds behind the leader, Laurent Fignon. History suggested victory for LeMond was going to be impossible and all but assured for Fignon. However, Greg LeMond had a trick up his sleeves, or rather, one to rest his sleeves on.
Tribars. And these are the same type of Scott-branded Tribars that were used by LeMond in 1989, and we've been kindly lent them by our good friend and absolute legend, Steve Grimwood from Elmy Cycles. Thanks again, Steve. If you're ever in Ipswich, be sure to visit his bike shop. It's great, and he's got an incredible collection of vintage bikes.
The 1989 Tour de France was the first time Tribars were used in the pro peloton, and they would have a huge impact on the race. But before we test out Tribars for ourselves, it's important to understand how the rest of the race unfolded, because there was far more to it than just that final individual time trial.
Many people know of LeMond's Tour victory using Tribars in Paris and often attribute his win there. But what's often forgotten and untold is the huge amount of individual time trialing in the 1989 Tour de France. The Tribars were first unveiled on stage 5, which was a huge individual time trial from Dinard to Rennes, 73 kilometres. Now, at the start of that stage, LeMond wasn't even in the top 10 on GC, but he took nearly a minute out of Fignon, and at the end of it, he was in yellow with a 5-second lead.
LeMond maintained his 5-second advantage until the second big day in the Pyrenees on stage 10, when the riders took on the Tourmalet, the Aspan, the Peyresourde and the Super Bagnères, where Fignon would take time back, giving him a 7-second advantage.
The stage 15 was another individual time trial, this time 39 kilometres from Gap to Ossières-Melette. LeMond was able to put his Tribars to use once more, this time taking 47 seconds out of Fignon and snatching back the yellow jersey.
Imagination, think of the yellow jersey, be the Tour de France.
Don't worry, my friend, you don't need to imagine too hard, because here at GCN, we have a special effects budget that rivals the likes of Industrial Light and Magic. Here, I'm going to transform you into Laurent Fignon.
Oh, thank you.
Put that on. I mean, admittedly, it's not totally accurate to Fignon's blonde hair, and you do look more like Myra Hindley, but we'll work with it. We'll work with it.
It's close.
It's close enough.
You won't notice when I'm zooming past.
No.
However, Fignon wasn't done. He counterattacked in the mountains in the Alps between stages 17 and 18, taking the yellow jersey back. The incredible stage from Briançon to Alpe d'Huez, the same as what was used in last year's tour when Tom Pidcock rode to victory.
Heading into the final TT, he had a lead of 50 seconds, but it wouldn't be enough. LeMond overturned the deficit and won by 8 seconds. The question is, though, how much difference did the Tribars make? Well, in a bid to find out, Laurent is going to ride 4 laps of this track at a set power output with and without the Tribars in a bid to find out. Go on, Laurent. Off you go.
Boop, boop. I mean, 1, 2, 3.
Tap. While Alex is doing his best Fignon impression, allow me to tell you a bit more about the Tribars. So they were designed by a chap called Boone Lennon, who was a former US national ski team coach and was ahead of his time in terms of realising the importance of aerodynamics in cycling.
Point out though is that in 1989 the riders used different bikes for time trial. They used bikes called low pros, which are now banned by the UCI. They had ball horns and a smaller front wheel. The theory behind this was that it's faster as the rider was in a much lower position. Another thing to point out is that Fignon used a double disc wheel. The theory behind this was that it was faster, and aerodynamically it is, but it makes the bike incredibly difficult to handle. Le Mans though only used a disc wheel in the rear, the Tribars making him faster overall.
The Tribars are a lot wider and very antiquated compared to what we have today. And although they did allow Le Mans to get into a more aero position than his competitors, it's nowhere near as aero as what we see from the likes of Remco Evenepoel in the modern era, especially his head position. Now, ahead of the Stage 5 individual time trial, Le Mans' director sportif went to the UCI commissaires to see if he could get permission to use them. He had to pay a visit to the fun police because, well, the UCI did have jurisdiction here. And the commissaire, somewhat surprisingly, said, yeah, it's fine, go use them. He even had an excuse in his back pocket if the commissaire initially objected, saying that Le Mans was having problems with his back and needed to use them. But he didn't need to say that. It was fine. And in doing so, potentially history was decided. That commissaire maybe decided the result of the race. So, fun little trivia fact we got from Steve Grimwood, and this is something you can see in the actual footage of Le Mans crossing the line, is that when he fitted his Tribars to his bike, the diameter of the handlebar was too narrow, so his mechanic actually had to get a Coke can and cut some bit of a Coke can out to make some shims to go under the bars. We didn't have Coke here, we only had Pepsi.
Yeah, I don't want to be picky, but you know, got to get history right.
Not historically accurate. Unlike everything else in this video, which is extremely historically accurate. We're now going to repeat our extremely accurate test with Greg LeMond. Now, to complete the look, we've got a time trial helmet because Greg LeMond wore a time trial helmet, which was also probably crucial in his victory over Fignon with his ponytail flapping in the wind, and he wore a pair of Oakleys. So we've got those on as well.
Oh, thanks.
Right, 4 laps. Off you go. Greg.
2, 3.
More like old Greg.
I'm old Greg. Riding these bars really does give you that immediate feeling of speed. And today, it's something that we take for granted. But in 1989, it was game-changing, and it truly changed the future of cycling.
Right, we've got the results.
Yes.
Tell us the scores, Alex. I mean, Greg.
Fignon did 11 minutes, 24 seconds, 31.4 k an hour, 216 watt average. Okay.
Nice.
Do you want to know what Greg did?
Yes.
Greg did 10 minutes, 54 seconds, 32.9 k an hour, and
Wow.
216 watts.
That's like 30 seconds quicker.
30 seconds quicker.
216 watts. You can see
Yeah,
it here.
exactly.
You can show it on the camera.
Yeah.
It's the exact same power you've done.
1.5 kilometers an hour faster. That's huge, even over this short distance.
Well, what's also intriguing, right, is that, and we haven't told you this yet, the first stage, well, it wasn't a stage, it was a prologue, but the first stage of the 89 Tour was an 8-kilometre individual time trial prologue.
Yeah.
And in that, Greg LeMond didn't use the Tribars.
Okay.
And what's crazy is that him and Fignon finished on the exact same time. And that, combined with the results we've seen today, leaves absolutely no doubt in my mind that were it not for the Tribars and also the aero TT helmet Greg wore, Fignon would have won the Tour de France.
What I want to highlight and point out, though, is that Fignon could have used a time trial helmet, like Le Mans did, and from stage 5 through to stage 21, his mechanics could have had time to get him some time trial bars and fit them onto his bike as well.
Well, I have heard that they did.
Yeah.
And for the final time trial, he did have the option of running some Tribars, but he chose not to because apparently he had a saddle sore, and riding in that position he felt uncomfortable.
Well, fair dues.
Well, there you go. I don't know. It's cycling and history is filled with what ifs, and tech is intrinsically part of the sport. That it is man and machine and tech, and that's one of the things that we absolutely love about it.
Oh, for sure.
But let us know what you think in the comments below, because I mean, this is my favourite tour of all time. I think it's incredible.
It is incredible. I'm keen to hear everyone else's thoughts on
Yeah.
this as well. Let us know in the comments. And well, if you haven't subscribed to GCNTech already, please do, to make sure you don't miss out on future interesting videos like this.
And just really high budget, fancy dress costumes.
If there's enough requests, we'll get more wigs.
Love you, bye!
See ya.